Recently, the frequent occurrences of drone harassment in Kinmen, Taiwan took a qualitative change on August 31st. The Kinmen defenders of Taiwan, the Republic of China, fired for the first time, pointing to the CCP's drones. The gunfire has broken the decades-long peace on the Taiwan Strait. On September 1st, Taiwan directly shot down a drone from mainland China. Let's briefly review the events in chronological order. After U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan on August 2nd, Beijing dispatched about 29 drone sorties to harass Kinmen in August. Especially on the afternoon of August 16th, the Taiwan military found the so-called civilian drone intruding and filming up-close videos of the Kinmen camp, officers, and soldiers. The Kinmen defenders responded by throwing stones, and the drone flew away immediately. Subsequently, the video footage captured by the drone went viral on mainland social media platforms. Since the drone used a long-range lens at a high altitude, the equipment and expressions of the sentry of the Republic of China Army were clearly seen, including the scene of the sentinel throwing stones. It became a hot red topic in the Chinese community. On China's social media platform, Weibo, a topic labeled Taiwan Army Soldiers Throwing Stones at Mainland Drones has reached 240 million views, and People's Liberation Army Drones Take Photos of Kinmen Sentinel has more than 80 million views. Underneath the official Chinese media reports, mainland netizens left many comments, mostly ridiculing the soldiers for throwing stones in response. One of the popular messages mocked, "They didn't even dare to open fire." Of course, this also makes many Taiwanese people unhappy. We speculate that there may be rules within Taiwan's military that don't allow the shooting of civilian targets on both sides of the strait without authorization to avoid tensions. Because in the peaceful environment that has lasted for decades on the strait, civilian ships and personnel have crossed the border for various reasons, and rash shootings may lead to unnecessary escalation of conflicts. Currently, the increasing drone harassment by the CCP has shown obvious signals of official authorization, and the tone of the CCP's unification of Taiwan by force is getting stronger and more explicit. Thus, we see that on August 30th, Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen, during a visit to the armed forces of the Penghu Islands, gave a speech criticizing the incessant harassment by Chinese drones and other gray areas in which the Communist Party conducts warfare activities. She said she had ordered the Ministry of National Defense to take necessary and strong countermeasures to defend Taiwan's airspace in due course.
The more the enemy provokes, the calmer we must be. We will not provide the other side with pretext to stir up conflict. We will not provoke disputes, and we will exercise self-restraint, but it does not mean we will not counter.
On August 30th, 3 batches of 3 civilian drones flew back towards Kinmen, China, after Taiwanese sentries fired flares to warn them. A little more than an hour later, 1 drone arrived again, and the National Army followed the warning procedure. Still, the drone ignored it and continued to hover, so the sentry immediately fired live ammunition at it. The drone flew away to Kinmen as well. This was the first shot fired by the Taiwanese army. On August 31st, the situation continued to escalate. On the evening of that day, between 6 and 8 p.m., the Kinmen defenders spotted 3 groups of 3 sorties of civilian drones in several areas. The defenders fired in succession to drive them away and notified the neighboring garrison with flares. At noon on September 1st, the Kinmen Defense Command again found an unidentified civilian drone with an aerial camera. After the warning was ineffective, the defense fired and shot it down. When Chinese unmanned drones enter our airspace, besides closely monitoring their activities, we also elevate air defense missile alerts to track the unmanned aerial vehicle. But if they are not dispelled, and if we determine that there is a danger posed to us, we will exercise the right of self-defense in accordance with operational orders and counterattack.
And the PLA will try to make a new rule of navigation in the Taiwan Strait if the new military normal status has been successfully established. And the PLA then will gradually change the international waterway of Taiwan Strait from high sea for navigation freedom to inland sea of China. And after the new military normal status has been consolidated, the PLA will reject the passage of foreign naval ship through Taiwan Strait unless under its permission.
What is the reaction of the CCP? It tries to classify such incidents as trivial matters not worth mentioning. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman said on August 29th, "I don't think it's something to make a fuss about when Chinese drones go up to Chinese territory and fly around." He even blamed the Taiwanese authorities at a press conference. "I am not aware of the situation you are referring to. The Democratic Progressive Party's attempt to hype up tensions does not mean anything." Hu Xijin, former editor-in-chief of China's official media Global Times, commented in a Weibo post on the matter, writing that according to his personal investigation from multiple sources, the drones that appeared near Kinmen recently should belong to private drone enthusiasts in the Xiamen area. This is the strategy of the CCP. For a long time, the CCP has used the so-called civilian forces as a shield to deliberately blur the line between the military and the civilian sector. For example, in the South China Sea dispute, the Chinese Coast Guard and militia boats are a layer of ambiguous camouflage for the CCP's military, causing headaches for many countries and even the world. Because they don't even create enough trouble for a full-scale naval response at the national level, but their activities make the countries feel threatened and harassed. We covered this in an episode in 2021. Internationally, it's widely believed that the vast majority of Chinese fishing vessels are communist militia vessels and that many of them are armed. Since 2015, these communist militias have grown in strength and have established their headquarters in the Shisha Islands. They also train with the Navy and Marine Police. These maritime militias are systematically trained in logistical support, intelligence gathering, surveillance, scouting, and sabotage operations. For decades, they have conducted intense operations in international public waters and foreign-owned waters to intimidate legitimate fishing operators in other countries in order to increase the CCP's influence and gain strategic advantage. In 2021, the CCP placed the jurisdiction of the Coast Guard under the Central Military Commission, which means that the actual operation of the Coast Guard is entirely under the CCP's naval military chain of command. Other countries' coast guards, such as Australia and the US, are only under military jurisdiction in a state of war. That means that the Chinese Coast Guard's operations go far beyond civilian activities only to protect coastal waters. It has become deeply involved in maritime disputes with neighboring countries. The tactic of indiscriminate military and civilian operations allows the CCP to reap de facto political and military benefits if it succeeds. At the same time, if it fails, the CCP can easily cut the connection. The harassment of Kinmen by civilian drones has successfully stirred up feelings of war among China's little pinks, feeding the ambition of the Communist Army and undermining the power of the National Army. This approach involves not only psychological warfare, it also has a strong military intent. Little Pinks is the name given to the hypersensitive, hyper-nationalist keyboard commandos of Communist China. Taiwan's former Air Force Deputy Commander told overseas Chinese media on September 1st that the activities of the CCP's drones, sand-pumping boats, and maritime police boats, including the activities of its warships and military aircraft in the surrounding waters and surrounding airspace, are considered gray areas. The Taiwanese government is certainly well aware of the CCP's intentions. Imagine if Taiwan keeps restraint or presents a weak stance and fails to deal with the continuous arrival of drones effectively. What will happen in the future when the CCP releases hundreds or thousands of drones carrying high explosive munitions to launch attacks? This time, the National Army was forced to shoot down the drone in question in a defensive action after warnings and requests for the drone to leave had been ignored. This was the most appropriate action after being patient and repeated warnings. I trust that the Taiwanese people and all democratic countries worldwide will deem this appropriate. China has drones flying in our country and even filmed videos to go back and use for internal propaganda. We have repeatedly warned and repeatedly asked not to invade and intrude. The Taiwanese people also feel resentment towards those actions. Taiwan doesn't have much of a choice. With such an aggressive attitude of the CCP, appeasement and avoidance of war will not only fail to win dignity, but will also make peace impossible. Instead of saying that Taiwan has fired the first shot, it is more fair to say that the enduring state of peace across the strait has been broken by the CCP unilaterally, and that the unrest, friction, and even conflict will inevitably increase. Later, a video appeared online showing a drone taking off from the Taiwanese side and reaching the military base on an island in China with a similar overhead view. The video footage shows the PLA quickly dispersing after noticing the drone above their heads. The authenticity of this video is yet to be determined. One theory is that Taiwan's drone players are determined to use drones to film Chinese military camps. Another is that perhaps the CCP used an old video to rework it for its own production. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense said on the evening of August 31st that the National Army didn't use drones to probe the skies over China. On the surface, it seems to be an information war with the use of drones that has some dramatic overtones. But both sides likely understand that the era of peace is over, and that tensions in the Taiwan Strait have now escalated to a new level. On September 2nd, a Chinese netizen with the handle Quanzhou Captain posted a video on Weibo saying he delivered care to his compatriots across the strait and claimed to have used a drone to airdrop in the military camp, definitely not on the beach. The videos show him at the beach assembling the drone by placing a braised egg and a packet of Foodling mustard greens, a popular brand in mainland China, into a cut plastic bottle. At the end of the video, a drone carrying a plastic bottle and a red plastic bag flies in the air in the direction of Kinmen in Taiwan. Chinese mustard and marinated eggs, when put together, sound like bomb. When the video was released, it received much praise from China's Little Pinks, who the CCP heavily brainwashes. One person wrote, "Airdropping bombs made from mustard and egg on friendly forces aren't very harmful but highly insulting." However, at present, the video has disappeared from the Weibo page of Captain Quanzhou, and the mainland network can't find the relevant video except for some graphics and images. In a press release on the evening of September 2nd, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense said that the Army's Kinmen defense guards found food wrapped in garbage bags during an afternoon patrol, suspected of being dropped by an unknown drone that was expelled. The Ministry of Defense released photos of the same outer packaging as the braised eggs and Chinese mustard in plastic bottles in the footage. The press release also said that the guards had informed all military bases and units to continue advancing their vigilance and search for drones from China that continue to provoke and harass or endanger the safety of the military and civilians by dropping objects. The National Army would take the necessary strong countermeasures following the principle of self-defense. Some military experts in Taiwan have analyzed that in the future, the CCP may also drop other things, perhaps propaganda leaflets or items with political intent that can be used to fight the information war, possibly dropping weapons during battle. A former chief of staff in Taiwan provided the government with a solution, suggesting that if the CCP's drones captured messages such as "all Chinese Communist people stand up against the authoritarian Xi Jinping," "no more one-party dictatorship," "call for peace and freedom," or even the flag of the Republic of China, these videos would be difficult for the CCP to use for propaganda. On August 31st, the Ministry of National Defense of Taiwan submitted the Republic of China 111 Years, the year 2022, report on the CCP's military power, along with the 2023 National Defense Budget. A new section on non-military operations has been added to this report. The report said that China used civil aircraft, drones, or air exploration balloons to harass outlying islands and Taiwan mainland for surveillance and provocation. Moreover, through these fishing vessels and survey vessels of scientific research units, the Chinese government is strengthening its battlefield operations around the Taiwan Strait by covering the military with the civilian. The CCP's maritime militia is also engaged in joint training with Chinese naval and marine police forces to increase the response load of Taiwan's maritime patrol forces. As we can see, the CCP's recent drone operations are complementary to the military exercises conducted against Taiwan since early August. further suppressing Taiwan's defense and putting pressure on the US to prevent the escalation of relations between the US and Taiwan. This is because there have been recent visits to Taiwan by US congressmen and US politicians.
And thank you again for your time. Thank you to your team for helping to accommodate us, and we look forward to continuing to help and support Taiwan as they push forward as an independent nation. You are so accurate when you mention the shared values that we have, loving freedom, loving democracy. And it is important indeed that freedom-loving nations support Taiwan as they seek to preserve their independence and their freedom.
Both Arizona and Taiwan are global semiconductor leaders, and it is in this industry where our partnership is the greatest. Arizona stands with Taiwan, and we look forward to building on the many opportunities ahead.
The American stance is what the CCP is really worried about. Following 2 consecutive days of live fire by Taiwan to disperse Chinese civilian drones that were encroaching on the Kinmen defense zone on August 31st, White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby stated that the concerns expressed by leaders in Taiwan are understandable given the aggressive, assertive, coercive, and quite frankly unnecessary activities that the PRC continues to conduct from a military perspective in and around the strait. The U.S. State Department has approved a potential $1.1 billion sale of military equipment to Taiwan, including 60 anti-ship missiles and 100 air-to-air missiles, with China threatening to take countermeasures. The Pentagon announced the package on September 2nd in the wake of China's aggressive military drills around Taiwan, following a visit to the island last month by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who was the highest-ranking U.S. official to travel to Taipei in years. According to the Pentagon's Defense Security Cooperation Agency, the sale includes Sidewinder missiles, which can be used for air-to-air and surface attack missions at a cost of some $85.6 million. Harpoon anti-ship missiles at an estimated $355 million cost, and support for Taiwan surveillance radar program for an estimated $665.4 million. Recently, the official Chinese media announced that the 20th Communist Party Congress will be held in Beijing on October 16th, and that Xi Jinping, the General Secretary of the Communist Party, will preside over the meeting. The focus of public attention is still on whether Xi Jinping will stay or leave and the future direction of the government's policies. It is important to note that before the 20th National Congress, the CCP would not have the capacity to provoke a war against Taiwan, nor would it have the military strength to occupy Taiwan fully. However, the CCP doesn't always follow normal logic. For example, during the Korean War, even when China was so poor and militarily weak, it decided to go to war with the US. The reason is that the lives of soldiers and civilians don't concern the Communist Party much. For the CCP leaders, when there is internal turmoil and power instability, it's an option to use the military externally to consolidate military power and establish authority. Therefore, Taiwan and the outside world shouldn't underestimate the CCP's desire to go to war with Taiwan.